Round one, fight! Coming next year is a documentary celebrating Street Fighter 2. Step back in time to the early 90s and relive the glory days when the fighting genre and the arcades changed forever. Check out the Kickstarter link below and help make this project become a reality. After many delays due to the pandemic, Wonder Woman 1984 is finally out in cinemas. Well, not all, as most are still closed, but I thankfully managed to see it at my local Odeon. With talks and plans for Warner Bros. To release Wonder Woman and a bunch of other big movies on HBO Max in the USA, it's caused a lot of disappointment with fans and filmmakers of cinema who wish to watch these latest big blockbusters on the big screen. With everything being very unpredictable at the moment, I can sympathise with both sides of the argument, but with HBO Max not available outside the USA, many of these movies will still come to the cinema if they are open in your area. I certainly want to watch Dune, for example, on a massive screen. It would be a loss to have that opportunity taken away. Even though some cinemas are open around the world, it's predicted Warner Bros. Are going to lose money on this film with its theatrical run. Well, only in the short term, I imagine. They will make a profit later on. So where do we find Diana in 1984? I'm going to try and avoid spoilers. The film opens with a flashback to young Diana competing in a multi-stage competition. She appears to be winning but falls off her horse and finds a shortcut to get to the finish line, but just before she does, she is stopped by Antiope, who tells her the truth is more important than winning, pointing out she cheated. Jumping to 1984, Diana is working at the Smithsonian Institute in Washington, D.C., specialising in the culture of ancient Mediterranean civilizations. The world is unaware of her alter ego Wonder Woman, but people have seen her in action, but no one has come forward with any evidence despite the numerous news reports. Diana meets a new co-worker, Barbara, played by Kristen Wiig, an insecure woman who gets no respect from her colleagues and idolises Diana and tries to befriend her. After an attempted robbery is foiled by Wonder Woman, the FBI asks Barbara to identify some stolen antiquities. Aspiring businessman Maxwell Lord, played by Pedro Pascal, is the founder of the Black Gold Cooperative, is trying to gain his fortune through his various oil wells, but his business is failing. It's revealed he's been searching for a magic stone that was created by the god of treachery and mischief, with legend telling that it apparently grants people wishes. The last Wonder Woman film hit the big screen in 2017 and got solid reviews, and I personally really enjoyed it. It's still one of my favourites of the modern DC films, along with Shazam. Which I didn't review at the time. It's definitely a film I want to discuss more in future. Once they announced they were setting this sequel in the 1980s, I was a bit underwhelmed by that decision. I felt maybe they could have explored World War II or perhaps the 1960s. Having 70 years apart from each film and not seeing Wonder Woman in action in pivotal points of the 20th century seemed a bit of a missed opportunity. Aside from those issues of what I wanted to see, the film was certainly very entertaining. But I don't think it's as good as the first film. If you are familiar with director Patty Jenkins and her views on the superhero genre, she is a big fan of Richard Donner's Superman, and took inspiration from that film for its tone and treatment of the source material for her adaptation of Wonder Woman. Come this sequel, there is elements that feel very similar to Superman 2, which didn't bother me at all because if you are familiar with my channel, I'm a huge fan of the Chris Reeve films. Also Jeff Johns, who co-wrote this film with Patty, worked for Richard Donner early on in his career, so you have two individuals who are fans of the Richard Donner Superman universe, so you begin to see the influence across these two Wonder Woman movies. The film only has a small cast, really only focusing on 4 characters, which is surprising for a big sequel. Gal Gadot, yet again, is very good as Wonder Woman, hits the emotional beats with ease, delivers everything with a smile on her face like a classic superhero should do, and shows total confidence on camera in the brightly coloured outfit. As we saw from the trailers, Chris Pine is back as Steve. His return does make sense, and he brings along the comedy aspect to the movie, as he tries to deal with being in the future and interacting with new technology and trying to fit in wearing 80s clothing. The film doesn't get lost in that 80s aesthetic, thankfully, as some films or TV shows create that idealistic fake 80s look. The film doesn't try to ram pop culture down your throat and constantly have pop songs thrown at you to remind you that you are in the 80s. It's all very subtle with its production design and direction. Pedro Pascal, i.e. the Mandalorian, plays as Maxwell Lord, who some may think is a spoof on Donald Trump. But the director says he is a mix of Michael Douglas's performance as Gordon Gekko from Wall Street and Gene Hackman's portrayal of Lex Luthor. And I can see the comparisons. Maxwell is a very sympathetic villain. He isn't a typical bad guy, he is charming and is aware of his faults, and wants to gain power really quickly once he knows he's about to lose everything, after many failed attempts to build up his career, being accused of running a pyramid scheme by one of his investors. The film satirises those entrepreneurs of the 80s who promised you riches beyond your dreams for little effort, but wanted loads of money in return. Pedro has great comedy timing as well throughout, making for a memorable performance. Kristen Wiig is great at playing this clumsy woman who lacks confidence and begins to transform into this powerful villain. I do feel, however, we needed to spend more time with her as this insecure person, as she is off camera for a while, so we don't really get inside her head to fully get to know her properly. It falls into a simple her against Diana, because she didn't have the confidence in life and so forth. It's a familiar character trait you've seen before. In terms of action, there are nice moments, especially the sequence involving the army security vehicles and the battle with Barbara in the White House. The end finale I wasn't really fussed about. If you've seen the trailers, you'll know Barbara turns into a cat-like creature called Cheetah, which is one of Wonder Woman's main villains from the comics. She ends up looking like Chitara from Thundercats. Thankfully the effects are good and the close-ups have Kristen in makeup, but it's all during a nighttime sequence, so it's easy for them to hide the CG character and for those looking for questionable wonky CGI. But with the nighttime lighting, it's a bit hard to make out what's going on. It's great seeing Wonder Woman do some really cool heroic stuff. Watching her run at top speed is awesome, and seeing her leap into the sky and attempt to fly was nice to see, all done very gracefully as well. It's like watching Christopher Reeve again, as you saw in movies arms and bank his body to simulate the effect of flying. As we've seen so many superhero films over the past decade, you will find them following very similar plot beats and structures, so you know what to expect by the end. Wonder Woman 84 does have those moments, but to me it didn't seem that predictable. It felt a little more refreshing with its overall outcome. The humour in the film isn't as full on as you see in the Marvel films, it's just littered throughout and generally does work, but it never gave me any big laughs, just a chuckle here and there. In terms of production values, the film is lit and photographed well. With great colours and contrast, the visual effects are generally very impressive, with many sequences shot on IMAX, with the majority of the movie itself shot on 35mm film, so we can look forward to a decent 4K transfer on Blu-ray in future. I was surprised Hans Zimmer was composing another superhero score, apparently bowing out of working on superhero films due to Batman v Superman, but he quickly returned to the genre with Dark Phoenix. I loved the score to the first Wonder Woman film, and I was expecting Hans Zimmer to provide something we've heard many times before from him, but thankfully this score has him firing on all cylinders. It's uplifting, magical, playful, emotional, delivers on the action beats and is full of heart. It's a triumph for him, so definitely worth getting hold of. There are some issues with the script, with a sluggish second act, and the face-off with Cheetah I didn't really care much about, as highlighted earlier. The film deals with themes of truth and being honest with oneself, and I suppose that's its strength. Even if it's a bit simplistic with its themes, it's easy to get behind it and get invested in the story for the most part. It's a strong sequel but doesn't quite have the impact and punch of the original, but it's still a lot of fun and worth watching on the big screen if you get the chance. Make sure to stick around during the end credits for an additional sequence, which is fantastic, but don't waste your time waiting till the very end of the credits, as there are no more surprises. There are talks of a third film and even a spin-off focusing on the Amazons of Themyscira, so I'm excited to see Gal Gadot continue as the character, and hopefully this movie will do well for them to make a third, and we could end up having a solid trilogy in future.